Okay, so let's look at Juggernaut as a carry here in Dota 2. Very versatile carry, very popular within the pro teams. He's a very strong agility hero, which means late game he can do a tremendous amount of damage. His weakness is obviously that he's quite low on intelligence and in strength, which basically means that when he's out of mana, he can be quite vulnerable. If he's used his spells and he doesn't have mana, he becomes a target and an easy kill. And there are lots of counters to Juggernaut. You're looking at the likes of a Lion or a Winter Wyvern. A lot of supports that can quite easily counter him. But if played correctly, he's an incredibly strong carry. In terms of his spells, his first one is Blade Fury. This is a magical ability which also gives him basically the equivalent of a BKB for a few seconds. It's a great early skill set to take, especially if you're going through a strong magical lane. Let's say you're against a CM or a Venomancer or a Darkseer and they've got a lot of magic spells. You can then use your Blade Fury to not only harass them but also to get out of bad fights or to protect yourself in lane. The second is Healing Ward. I think this is a very underrated spell. I wouldn't say you need to put a lot of points into Healing Ward, especially early on. You probably only need one. But by the time you start to get into the late game, you could win or lose a fight based on using or not using your Healing Ward. Now, a Healing Ward is a separate entity, which means you have to micro. You have to be able to move it around and not let it get killed. But if you look here, at max percentage, it can do 5% of your max health per second in which it heals you, and it lasts 25 seconds. So 5% over 25 seconds is 100%. So basically that means that if you use the full 25 seconds on the Healing Ward, you can go from 0 to 100%. That's how powerful the spell is. Then you got Blade Dance. This is a passive. It's basically a critical strike, and really good for farming, also good for fighting. In terms of early game, I would probably either go Blade Dance if I see it's a really safe lane and I've got a good support that can harass, because that's just going to help me CS better. Or I'd go Blade Fury if I need to get in and out of battles, or I'm against a strong magical lineup, or if I want a first blood. The Healing Ward, I would probably only bring this on point 4 or 5, so I'd go 1 or 2 in Blade Dance or 1 or 2 in Blade Fury, and then I'd put 1 in Healing Ward before I go into the ulti. And then, you want to really max out either your Blade Fury or your Blade Dance, depending on how the lane is going. Leaving the Healing Ward really until last. You don't really need it to go to the max in order for it to be a valuable early game item spell. In terms of the talent tree, the first one, 20 movement speed or 5 to all stats. Those are both great. 5 to all stats just gives you that tankiness, your agility, and also your intelligence. So that's a really strong point. The 20 movement speed, you can just go from one farming pattern or one camp to the next and have a quicker farming pattern with that movement speed. In terms of the second option, 20 attack speed or 20 healing ward cooldown, I would definitely go with the attack speed. Yes, the healing ward is a very long cooldown, but you only need to use it in fights. So it's not like it's not a super long cooldown for in between usage of fights, versus that 20 attack speed is really powerful, so I'd definitely go for that. The 160 Blade Fury DPS, damage per second, versus 8 armor. Is this in the game? Are you threatened by right click? You've got a Drow Ranger going against you. You might want to go for the armor, or maybe you're a bit more aggressive and taking charge. Then you want to go for the 160 Blade Fury damage. 25 1 Omnislash duration or 475 health. I would definitely go for the Omnislash duration. Because your ulti, Omnislash, is incredibly powerful. Not only is it an illusion technique, you can get in and out of battles, or you can kind of avoid a lot of spells using it. It also does an incredible amount of damage to a hero. So, obviously you want to try and avoid fights where there's lots of creeps, because your Omnislash could accidentally, be wasted on a few of the creeps. So if you're fighting in bush or at the Roshan pit, Omnislash is really powerful. Even if there's 3 or 4 heroes grouped up, the Omnislash is pretty much gonna destroy, your supports, and probably do a lot of damage if it's on a single target, even if it's like a spec or a spectre, something huge. An Omnislash on one hero, on a Tidehunter, on an axe, is most likely going to kill them. So it does a lot of physical damage, and it's also allows you to be invulnerable during that duration. So I would definitely say the Omnislash is a good talent tree to take. In terms of Ags, the Ag's Scepter gives you Swift Slash, which is a mini Omnislash with a much quicker cooldown. I would say if you've got the economy, if you've got the cash, Agnum Scepter is a great spell or great item to get. It just gives you much more illusion and right click. It's really phenomenal. The Ag Shard just increases and bumps up your Blade Fury. It's only 1,400 gold in this meta, so if you've got the extra cash, it's always something good to get into. So all round, Juggernaut is weak in terms of his strength and intelligence. If he doesn't have mana, he can be quite vulnerable. But given the right starting lane and the right items, this is one of those carries that can go super late game without too many worries. Okay, so now we're going to jump into a game. I played with a friend of mine a week or so ago, and he played a Jugg, and it was probably the best Jugg that I've seen in a long time. He did a lot of things right. He also made a couple of mistakes, as we all do. So we're not professional players or perfectionists. But yeah, I'm going to share with you, a couple of things that I think he did particularly well in the early game, mid game, and late game, and also how he essentially got a rampage at the end. Some of his item progressions, and just some of the the clever plays that he made. In terms of matchup, they've got a Void, Crystal, Silencer, Darkseer, and Pudge. So it's not necessarily an easy game for the Jugg. The Pudge can dismember him during the Blade Fury. The Silencer obviously can silence him. Void, if Void catches any hero in a chrono, that hero is probably dead. So the Void always has that kill threat that with a good chrono he can destroy the Juggernaut. So yeah, definitely a tough game. I would say he would need to go for Manta style just to get rid of that silence, because that's going to be a big element of this game. In terms of the team he's playing with, so Doom and Grimstroke, great combo. Obviously a double Doom, and you can pretty much get rid of the Void with a Doom. Doom is single target, one of the strongest heroes. And then an off lane Sand King and a safe lane support Bane. So I think a decent lineup. I wouldn't say one team is more favored than the other. In terms of the Jugg's early items that he's gone for, so he's gone here for some sustain with tangos, and he's obviously going to build into a Wraith Band, which I think is a very clever play. It gives you that additional attack speed, but also a bit of armor early on. Now Jugg is one of the best at right clicking in especially the early game, just because of the amount of damage that he does and the speed at which he attacks. Now what you'll see here is that the Darkseer has gone for 1 point in Iron Shell. This is incredibly annoying because it's a lot of magical damage, and Jugg needs to kill this creep before that magical damage stops. So I really like what he's done here. He hasn't taken a skill set yet, but as soon as he sees the Iron Shell, he's going to put 1 point in Battle Fury, which is magic resistance, which is going to help him deal with this creep without taking any damage. And basically Darkseer has wasted his Iron Shell because it's not going to be used and not going to be really effective. So that for me was a very clever play. Not only is he putting damage on the creep, he's not taking any magical damage, and that's a big part of Darkseer's early game. Also a nice dodge of the hook there. So if we just fast forward a bit here, you'll see that he's going to CS really nicely. Let me open up the last hits. It's a tough lane because you'll see the Bane here on the mini map. The Bane is going to go and pull camps. So really the Juggernaut is here on his own. So he needs to play quite defensively. He can do a couple of denies. He can put some last hits in. As soon as he feels threatened, he Blade Furies, gets rid of the Iron Shell. I think he's really playing this well because he's on his own, which is nice because he's going to get some good levels. But it does mean that things are going to be quite tight in the beginning. In terms of CS, he's 5 for 2. The Void is 7 for 3. So not a huge difference. You can see that he bought the Wraith Band, but he sold it again, because what he's going to do now is he's going to wait first for the boots and then get the recipe. The boots are going to be on the courier, which means the courier travels quicker, so it's a nice little efficiency play there. And yeah, just continuing on with his farm. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, see what his next item will be. He's going to go Wraith Band plus boots into phase boots. Phase boots for me, I think, is a great item for Jugg. It's an indication that he wants to fight early. It's additional armor, additional damage. In terms of the skill set, he's gone 2 in Blade Fury, 1 in Blade Dance. There's no real need, and then he goes 1 point in Healing Ward. So that's for me the perfect kind of starting point, is get 1 piece in Healing Ward so that you can use it if it turns bad. He's got Tango, he's got Healing Salve, he's got lots of sustain. So, all going well. So we're going to slowly start setting up for the first kill here at 9 minutes 30. In terms of his items, he's got the phase boots, he's got the Wraith Band. He did pop Omnislash to try and get the Darkseer kill, but it didn't work out. So that's not on the table at the moment, but he still has his Blade Fury, which is very, very important for fighting. In terms of CS, 52 for 12 versus the 31 for 5 Void. So he's definitely outscaling the Void. He's got some nice, last hits. He's dealing with the Iron Shell pretty well. So in terms of the early game, I think he's playing it really nicely. He's going for Maelstrom as his first item. Most people either go Maelstrom or Battle Fury in terms of the first farming item. I really like the Maelstrom because it's a bit cheaper and it gets you to fight quicker. So here we got the first kill. A nice rotation from the Sand King, easy control, lots of magical damage with the Blade Fury, easy kill. He's now got his Javelin, which just helps him, get a 30% chance to go through evasion. So helps him right click a little bit better. And leading into a Maelstrom. So perfect sort of setup. 10 minutes in, and he's got, a decent amount of farm. By the 12-minute mark, he's going to have Maelstrom, and he's pretty much soloing the lane. He almost killed the Pudge there. Okay, he does now, so he's getting solo kills, solo experience, which is fantastic. So he's just getting a really good start. And 12 minutes in, he's got Maelstrom, which is pretty phenomenal. Pulling creeps, I like this, as much as that's the task of the support. He's just making sure that he's also being as effective as possible. Now he's got Maelstrom. Now he can go into the bush and he can farm up as much as he wants, and quickly, because he's got those phase boots. What I like here is he's moved over to top. There's obviously a bit of a fight happening, and he's got his Omnislash, so he's ready to fight now. He's in the mood. Unfortunately, the Void can kind of outplay him there, but he zoned out the Void so that they could get the kills in the Crystal Maiden and the Pudge. So I definitely like that play. You'll see in the next fight where the Void is involved, he waits for the Void to first use his Q, his time lapse or his time walk, and then he goes in for an ulti. Okay, so here we are, almost 20 minutes into the game. He's got his Maelstrom, he's got his phase boots, and he's also got a Yasha, which is going into a Sanjin Yasha. I think that's a really clever play. It just gives him a bit more sustain. If he gets caught in the chrono, at least he's got some ability to kind of get out of that fight or survive. Going into a smoke play here, which I think is very clever, especially because you've got Omnislash out. There we go, great play. He saw that the Void had committed with his time walk, so now he knew he could put on his Omnislash and there was no way he could escape it. Couple of kills by going deeper, so great plays. Obviously it was a good smoke play, and he waited for the right time. He got his Saint and Yasha before the creep died. And now he's got a lot more tankiness and he can sustain a lot more. In terms of kills, 8, 1, and 2 with 136 last hits. He's on top of the charts. So just fighting when needing to fight, farming in between. He's going to use his healing ward now to get full health. While he's farming, there's no threat of him being attacked, and he's back to full health. He can now go and comfortably farm all the different lanes. So we're heading into the late game stage. You can see his items have progressed really nicely. He's got the Aghanim Scepter, which gives him the Swift Slash, which is basically a second Omni Slash that has a cooldown of 20 seconds. He's got the Butterfly, which means if he gets caught in the chrono, he's at least got quite a lot of sustain. Kills, deaths, and assists 15, 3, and 9 with 360 last hits. He's completely scaled over the Void, and that is partly due to the map control that we have over the Void's team. But yeah, just a great farming item early on with that maelstrom, which has given him the ability to scale really quickly. And we're heading towards sort of the last fight of the game. We're going into sort of the high ground push. Obviously, a logical step would be to go for Roche. At his current farming levels, he can push Roche very quickly. There is a nice fight brewing up here, so he's going to make his way up. The chrono has been popped, so he doesn't have that risk there. There we go, leash, double omnislash. Oh man, look at how beautiful that is. And then the Darkseer comes in for another quick omnislash, or the swift slash. Last hero to deal with now is their big tanky and hard carry void, but one-on-one the Jugg will win, especially when there's 3 of his team members around. So great fight leading into Roche Pit. He can now get his rampage, which is fantastic. 5 kills in a row. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you play a strong Juggernaut in terms of getting a rampage, getting the right items, and just dominating the opposing team so that they can't really threaten you. He goes on now to get Roche and pretty much ends the game by going a high ground and just overwhelming the opposing team. So that was a really cool game. Glad that I could be involved in that victory. I think the key takeaways from a Jugg is you want to be farming early on. You want to make sure that your support is pulling creeps so that you've got safe farm. You obviously are quite vulnerable when you don't have mana or don't have spells. And knowing when to get into a fight, knowing when to go and farm. I think this Jugg did really well by going into the fights that were necessary. He did get caught out 3 times with 3 deaths, but that's minimal for the 24 kills that he got. And then in terms of items, you obviously want to play against what your opposing team has got in strength, but you want to be going sort of your butterflies, your manta, Saint Yasha. You can also go Abyssal Blade, Eye of Skadi, Assault Cuirass, if you wanted to go sort of more of a tankier build. And really you want to be focusing on getting his right click and his attack speed up because of the scale that the Blade Dance, that passive critical strike has, and also the Omnislash. If your attack speed is quicker, you can do more right clicks in the space that your Omnislash is going. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Good luck with your next game.